I want you gentlemen to kind of introduce yourselves so we can get started. And Mr. Ray, I'm going to start with you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Juneteenth Day. And my name is Ray Ash, Sugar Ray Ash. That's the way it looks on the ballot. I'm running for the Texas House of Representatives in District 89, which is pretty much all of Collin County. And by way of background, I'm a tax attorney. That's how I make my money, tax attorney. When I came down here from New Jersey, I was a prosecutor in one of the courts up there. And also I am the great grandson of a slave, which I think is pretty much on point since this is Juneteenth. My great grandfather was a slave in Louisiana in this country. All right, well, that's Sugar Ray, that's me. Mm-hmm.
All right, my name is Corey Kirkendall. I'm the chair of the Collin County Black Chamber. We represent African-American businesses as well as minority businesses to continue to grow throughout the state of Texas, but primarily in Collin County. We want to make sure that we all have a fair share and a seat at the table and making sure that we're looking out for and promoting Black businesses in this county. My day job, as Ray say, is day job, how he makes his money. I own an IT firm in Plano, Texas. I've been doing that now for the last 14 years. And so we look out for everything from IT, cybersecurity, and everything to ensure that we protect your most valuable asset, which is your data. It's a pleasure to be here today. All
right. Thank you so much for both of you being here today. And so to get us started, Juneteenth is a commemoration of abolition of slavery in 1865. Just to get a brief history of June 19th, Union soldiers landed in Galveston, Texas with news. Please give us a little history of what transpired, especially because this was 2.5 years after President Lincoln had issued Emancipation Proclamation. Mr. Ray, if you can tell us about that, what happened? How come they didn't know for 2.5 years? How come they didn't know?
Well, why didn't they know for 2.5 years? Because slaves couldn't read, number one. They were forbidden to read. It was against the law for a slave to read. And any information a slave ever got came from the plantation owner, all right? That's how they got their information. Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. I believe it was in September of 1862 when he actually signed it. And it became law January 1st, 1863.
Right.
Well, the war was still going on, see? And, soldiers fighting soldiers back and forth. So, the people in the South, the slaves who were on the plantations, things like that, they didn't have any way of getting information. There was no television, no iPhones, no nothing, Like I said, the only way that they communicated and got information from the outside world was from their plantation owners. And the plantation owners, they were in no hurry to let them know about it.
I lost you, Ray.
Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Ray, can you check your mic?
I can hear you, Ray.
Yeah, you hear me?
I can. But I don't think Monica can hear you.
Let's see. Can you hear me now? Damn.
Oh, but I can't hear them.
Yeah, boy.
I see that their mics are on, but I cannot hear them.
Yeah, Ray, I think you're good. Monica, I think it's
I don't know.
it's on your side. Can you hear us?
I can hear them.
I hear you, Corey.
Okay.
We are having problems today. Why? Yeah, it's on my end. I can hear you from my tablet on the other side, but I just cannot hear you here. I don't know why, and you're not mute.
Okay.
Do you trying to pick it up from
doing this
device?
today.
Sometimes if you do
Let me
it from
try to
two
go.
different devices, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like one, you got to turn one off.
Oh, this is ridiculous. What do you think? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're back. I have to keep on checking on my speaker. I don't know why my speaker keeps going off. All I did was just add volume on my speaker, nothing else. I don't know why. So I am so sorry. Where were we?
All right. Can you hear me? Okay.
I hear you just fine now. Yeah.
All right. What I was saying was that the only way that the slaves got information was from the plantation owners. So that even though, you know, Lincoln signed it and he was way up in the north, and this was supposed to affect the slaves who were in the South. So just the sheer geography of it all right? There was no way to get the information to the slaves who were on the plantations unless the owners told them, and the owners they really had no reason to tell them. I mean, the slaves were doing the work, and they're sitting around on the porch drinking their mint juleps. They weren't about to let them slaves know that they need to stop working. You know,
right.
They had no incentive to tell them. So that's why it took so long.
Yeah.
That's why.
Corey, did you have anything to add on that?
I agree with everything Ray's saying. You know, they were very crucial to the supply and what was going on in the crops. So for them to tell them, it would have been detrimental to their income in order for them to do that, because at that point in time, they wanted to try to get as much work as they possibly could. So there was no incentive to tell.
Would you say it was cheap labor?
It was very cheap labor. It was almost free.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it was free. I mean, you know, slaves didn't know anything about wages. They didn't know nothing about wages. You know, everything they did was for free. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so I can only imagine profound shock by both slave owners and slaves themselves. Please explain working relationships that followed. Were Black people free to leave the plantation? Was there any relocation of Blacks looking for greener pastures, wanting change of environment, wanting to start over? Please talk about move to the Northeast, neighboring states like Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, what we know as the scatter. Mr. Corey?
Yeah, so a lot of the scatter was, you know, once they were free, they did want to leave and go places, but unfortunately, from an economical perspective, it was just not possible. A lot of the scatter also happened that when they were free, a lot of the slaves went to go look for their brothers and sisters and relatives that were sold off. And so part of that process was them going to go find their family. And that's what they did. If you go back to some of the original celebrations of Juneteenth, part of this was it was parades and everything else, but there was also a call out for, can you find my person? They would actually put out calls and put up posters that say, I'm looking for my brother and sister. I'm looking for this person. So it was a way for them to continue to call out to try to find their relatives that they were once together with, and they're not anymore. Going from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. Slaves, you know how they put pictures on milk cartons, and they look for children.
Yeah.
Slaves were the originators of that, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to find their loved ones, and can you find this child, this boy, this girl, this woman, and you know, because you got to remember that slaves were considered property by the plantation owners. Yeah. And so they didn't care nothing about keeping families together. All right. They didn't care nothing about family, Black families anyway. Yeah. So, yeah. So when they scattered, one of the main things they were doing was trying to find their loved ones. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So does that explain concentration or, you know, like Black population in certain areas, like maybe Louisiana? And does that have any explanation of, you know, the kind of food that you can find in Louisiana? You probably cannot even find it somewhere else. Does that have anything to do with it?
I think a lot of that comes from a lot of the cultures and things that they were introduced to, as well as some of the cultures that they had as being a slave, and some of the traditions they had. I think a lot of the people that couldn't scatter, if you look at where they are, they're still kind of populated in those areas around the places where they either grew up or were part of the plantation on. And then after that, you know, as you start to see what happened, a lot of the workers in the South, my grandfather being one, would have to travel to work. He was born in Bryan, Texas, but ended up relocating into Oklahoma for the simple fact that that was the only place that they could find work, that they were accepted to be able to work for a decent wage. But for the most part, my grandfather was separated from his family, working and traveling to find work to provide for his family.
Right.
Because where he was, he could not raise and support his family living in the area from where he was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to Juneteenth, festive, and food. How do African Americans celebrate this day? For example, what is strawberry soda pop? Mr. Ray, can you tell us that?
Yeah, I can tell you all about strawberry soda pop because Big Daddy, that was my grandfather, who migrated to Texas from Louisiana. Like I said, his father, my great grandfather, was a slave. And Big Daddy was 16 years old. Well, let me just give a little background about how he got to Texas.
Okay.
He got to Texas because he shot a white man in Louisiana, and he had to leave town. All right. Yeah, that's how he got to Texas.
Was there any FBI at that time to come find him in Texas, or no?
No, he shot a man. He left home. He was the eldest child in his family. You know, he could make it on his own pretty much, and he just left. And he found his way to Texas, and that's how he got to Texas. And anyway, working with a third grade education, which is all he built up a business right in Trinity, Texas. And over the next 75 years, he was quite successful with that business. But anyway, it was a cafe, barbershop, pool hall, and a cat house. All right. He had the cat house too out back. And I used to go spend my summers with him. And, you know, because being an Army brat, we traveled all over the world, but somehow my mother would find a way to get me back to Texas in the summer to spend with Big Daddy. And I used to love drinking them strawberry soda pops. He would always let me, because he sold them in his cafe and everything. And that was my favorite soda pop, was the strawberry one. But as far as the foods and everything that are associated with Juneteenth, it's not just the strawberry soda pop. I mean, you know, you gotta throw in the fried chicken, you gotta throw in the fried fish, the corn, collard greens, sweet potatoes, the sweet potato pies, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Black folks slow down on Juneteenth. They celebrate. All right.
Yeah.
You know, I said that this country, America, next month they're going to celebrate the 244th year of independence. America will, right?
Yeah.
Well, Black folks are going to celebrate 155 years of freedom themselves. You see what I'm saying? So America will be celebrating next month. Black folks are celebrating Juneteenth of being free. All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, Ray, that's kind of interesting. I think Frederick Douglass said that Independence Day is not my Independence Day.
There you go.
He did once.
There you go.
And they always wonder what he would have said about Juneteenth. And I believe that's when he would have said that this is actually my Independence Day.
That's
and
right.
Where it comes from, because that's where it comes from. But I agree. You know, we do throw down and we do celebrate on Juneteenth.
Okay. Right. So now that we're talking about food, this is probably off topic. How did Aunt Jemima get in on the box?
How did she get on the box?
Yeah. And what does?
Because this is corporate America that we live in. We live in corporate America. Okay, you got to remember that. And it's a capitalist society.
But why did we use a Black woman as a face of?
Oh, because the Black women did all the cooking. That's where it came from. Black people did all the cooking. White folks didn't do no cooking. Like I said, they were sitting on the porch sipping their mint juleps. That's all they did. They didn't do any work.
Yeah.
The Black folks did the work in the fields. The Black folks did the work in the house. The Black folks did all the work.
Right.
And Aunt Jemima, that picture of her on the box became to symbolize good food. All right. Because everybody knows that Black women can cook.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah.
All right then. Okay. So on this day, African Americans focus on education and self-improvement. Does recounting the past encourage young Blacks, or do you think it creates hate or bitterness? I know it's a part of history, but what has been the outcome of this day in history and the impact on Blacks? Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I always believe my grandfather used to tell me a lot, and that we stand on their shoulders, and they burdened a lot to allow us the freedoms and the things that we afford today. I believe that we have to continue to educate our young people about history, because you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. Right. So when we're looking at the books and we're in school and where it comes from, you learn about Frederick Douglass, you learn about Martin Luther King, and I think that's about it. Right. After that, we don't understand that there was a significant impact that African Americans had on the development and the growth of this country. And so therefore, I want to make sure that our young people are educated, that they can be whoever and whatever they want to be by educating themselves, by understanding where they came from, understanding what slavery was about, how you got through the Jim Crow times, how we went through those processes, because they should never take their freedoms for granted. And the only way they don't do that is they have to be educated and learn and know where that came from.
Absolutely. Okay.
You ever heard of Fannie Lou Hamer?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever heard of Fannie Lou Hamer?
No, sir.
Fannie Lou Hamer, she was an activist back in the 60s. And she was from Mississippi, all right? And she got together the Freedom Democratic Party, was splintered off from the Democratic Party. And when back in the 60s, this was when Lyndon Johnson was in there, and Lyndon Johnson was a racist. All right, let's just tell it like it is. He was a racist. But she tried to, get her black Freedom Democratic Liberation Party seated at the convention, and they refused to seat her, because they were Black.
Right.
And what Fannie Lou Hamer said was that ain't nobody free till everybody free. All right. Nobody free till everybody free.
Right.
And, she was quite an activist back in the 60s. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I have two, a young gentleman and a young lady here. Every time you guys are talking, and I want you guys to know that they're just going,
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've been through American history. They know. But I can see their heads just nodding. Mr. Ash, you are a veteran. About 5,000 soldiers and sailors fought on the American side during the Revolutionary War. Please tell us all about that. Yeah.
Well, the Revolutionary War, the official start date, I believe it was like April 19th of 1775. Before that, 5 years before that, they had something called the Boston Massacre. All right.
Okay.
And that all started because some British soldier fired into a crowd of patriots, Americans, or whatever. He just fired into the crowd and he killed one of them. That man that he killed was Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a black man. So a black man is the first man who was killed in the American Revolution. You know, he was actually the first man killed. And that didn't start the official battle, but what it did is it kind of like built up the tensions between Britain and the colonists, and things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, 5 years later, the actual war started. Okay, but the Boston Massacre back in 1770 was the first casualty was Crispus Attucks. Now, you mentioned 5,000 black soldiers that fought for the Patriots. There was really more like 8,000. Well, between 5,000 and 8,000. Different versions of the story will give you different numbers. But let's just use that number, 5,000. What happened was the plantation owners, because you got to remember, slaves had to do what they were told. All right, they didn't have any choice in anything. And so the plantation owners told them, pick up a gun and get over there and fight for us, for the South, for the colonies and stuff like that, and go over there and fight the British. And so the slaves had to do that. And they were just following orders from the plantation owners. All right, they didn't have their heart into it. They didn't enlist. They were not volunteers. All right. But on the other side, on the British Army, British Army had about 20,000 blacks who fought for them.
Oh, wow.
That's right, like 4-1. All right. And the reason that they were fighting for the British is because the British promised them freedom. They said, if you defeat these colonists, we'll free all of y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that they had more incentive. All right. And it was like 20,000 blacks fighting for the British. Only 5,000 were fighting for the colonists.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Mr. Corey, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think in that story, what you start to see is that freedom has always been what it was all about. Being able to be equal and free, and we definitely stood for the promise of that happening. So definitely you can see it just continues to come up, and for to have a sense of freedom and to be free was always what it all hinged on.
Wow.
You know, freedom is something that's born in you. You are born with the will to be free. Nobody has to teach you how to want to be free. My granddaughter, the youngest one, she climbs over everything. You know what I mean? She's like 1.5 years now, but she's a climber. She's always trying to get out. You know what I'm saying? I got a video of her. We had her in a corral. Like we thought this would hold her in. You know what I'm saying? So she would be still. No, she found a way to break out. You understand what I'm saying? She found a way to break. But what I'm saying is freedom is something that's inherent in you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. Yeah. Anybody wants to be free. You remember when the Juneteenth came about, because on June 19th, 1865, Major Gordon Granger stood on a balcony in Galveston and read the general order to all of the slaves. He read that order to them, and basically he said, "Y'all are free now. You can go." Well, he was reading the order. Before he even got finished reading the order, the slaves started scattering. They didn't even finish. They didn't even wait for him to finish reading it. They left. They broke camp. You understand? Yeah. They left. That's what freedom's all about.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Wow, that's great. Okay. History is actually very long, and we can't go through all this Juneteenth from 18 to now. And because we can't cover it all, we're recounting major or significant events to understand how we got where we are today. After liberation of slavery, Black Americans continued to be marginalized through enforced segregation. Please talk about Black codes, Jim Crow laws, Mr. Corey.
Yeah, so once freedom was done, and once everybody realized that the slaves were free, they had to figure out a way to continue to keep them down, to make white supremacy continue to live on. So they created these things called Black codes, which were laws that were created in order to keep Blacks in their same economic situation. where they were forced to work for only work for their previous slave master, and they could not work for anybody. They couldn't compete for a better wage.
Wow.
They couldn't do certain things. They couldn't, go to certain places. They kept it in that situation where they kept their finger on the pulse and kept them where they could be. They couldn't get better. They couldn't go from places and couldn't do things. And so they put in laws that would enable that, which came back to is another way of putting chains back on to keep them in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And
so nobody could say, I quit.
Yes. Couldn't quit, couldn't go work for anybody else. I was still can only work for my previous plantation owner or my slave master. I could only work for that person. I couldn't go across the street and work for someone else if they offered me a better wage. I couldn't do those type of things. It was just one of those things that eventually created a legal system that kept, instead of having physical change, we now had the political system and laws that became the change.
Yeah.
But okay, so if they couldn't quit, could they get fired?
If they got fired, what they would end up doing, they were breaking the law. They would actually they could actually be arrested and go to jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But they wasn't gonna fire them Negroes. They needed them to do the work.
Yeah.
They not fire them. Who gonna do the work? Yeah. Them white boys ain't gonna do that work. All right. That mic again.
Yeah, we lost you again, Miss Micah. Monica, we can't hear you. Can't hear you again.
Yeah, type her a little note, Corey. I don't know how to do that.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, allow me to skip all the way to 1930s when Federal Home Loan Bank Board and Homeowners Loan Corporation conspired to create maps with marked areas considered as bad or risk mortgages, better known as redlining. I have been reading so much about this redlining. I'm coming to understand a lot about it. Mr. Corey, please just explain to us why some of us cannot get mortgages.
Yeah. So when they created these maps, that became red lines. What it did was when a lot of the whites moved into suburbia, they made it impossible for the blacks to move out there from that perspective. And then they would give you ratings from A, B, C, or D. Based on that rating was whether you're going to be able to even qualify for a federal loan, or even if you couldn't even be insured. So therefore, that redlining created that situation where it was more risky to loan to a black person than it was to anybody else. So therefore, they didn't have a fair shot. And in that same part of that redlining, because there was a migration into the suburbs, that's when all you see the projects started to pop up. Those projects were developed for people to have an opportunity to be closer to certain things, because there were actually a lot of whites in projects as well as there was a lot of blacks in projects. But what ultimately happening is those projects became a way to lock the African Americans and the blacks into that area, because they couldn't go out to the suburbs and get loans and get property, because it was actually written that blacks were too risky to do that. So therefore they could not qualify, even though it was proven that the blacks would actually pay more to have that house because they wanted a better life, which means that they could actually probably get, if a white was paying $100 a month, the black would be willing to pay $150, $200 a month. So therefore they were not more risky. It was just the way it was set up, and that's where it was.
Okay, so someone had sent me a video, and on this video, just to summarize the video, it was showing that if I live probably in downtown Dallas, or even if I have a child and name my child, a name that is you can just tell that probably this is an African American. And then we have John, so if my child, who sounds like an African American, and this is just a resume, they go to med school, they, with a white John, and they both have 4.0 GPA, and they both probably apply for the same job, John is likely to get it. And my African-American child who has an African-American name is not likely to get it. Why is that? Have the same qualifications.
Why is
it's called yeah, go ahead, Ray.
Systemic racism. All right, it's just built in. You know, you got to start everything with slavery. You got to start with slavery, and from slavery it just built. You know, the melanin in your skin will always make you inferior to the white man. Always, simple as that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a state of mind. That's just how he thinks. That's how he thinks, and I don't know how to get it out of him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a piece where it comes back to truly learning and understanding. I think that, you know, by having that name and having two different, it's even surprising that your student would even get to the point of having a resume. They were prejudged based on their name and anything else. They never got an opportunity to meet and really understand that they are truly qualified to be able to do that. There's a term out there called unconscious bias, and I believe there's a true conscious bias, right? And a lot of people like to blame it on unconscious bias, which we all have that, right? There's certain things that we do that's happening, but I believe that, you know, it's an education of what that looks like. Given an opportunity that says, yes, I'm looking at the resume, I see the qualifications. Why should it be based on my name? Let me take it to the next step. Let me meet this person. Let me understand this person. Let me go down that part. And in most cases, that just doesn't happen, but it should.
I'm gonna tell you a funny but true story. Therefore, it's sad. It's funny, but it's true. So therefore, it's sad. 20 years ago, I've been down here 20 years now in the Dallas area, and the way I got here, I had been a prosecutor up in New Jersey, and then when I got out of that job, you know, it was a political thing, and then the mayor who appointed me, he resigned, so I had to find another, you know, something else to do, and that's what got me looking to come to Texas. And so I looked in the newspapers and I found something that would suit me because I'm a CPA also. I'm an attorney and I'm a CPA. So I found a position for a tax manager of a CPA firm. I said, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so I called the guy up on the phone, and he pretty much interviewed me on the telephone. He had never seen me.
Right.
And he liked so much as to what I was saying, the answers I was giving him. He loved the way I was talking. He said, oh man, you sound like a perfect fit for our firm here.
Right.
And he liked me so well, he paid for my airline ticket to come down for an in-person interview, right? He paid for my, that was on a Friday. I came down like on a Friday afternoon, and he hadn't seen me yet, right? And he paid for my airline ticket to come down here. He put me up in a hotel. He even arranged for me to go play a round of golf at his private country club out in Mesquite, out there. Okay, told me how to get there and everything, and told him I was coming. You know, had it all set up. And so Monday morning, when it was time for me to go into his office for the interview, I went in. I told the receptionist who I was. She said, "Okay, you can wait in the conference room." And about 5 minutes later, this white man comes in the conference room. He looked at me, and he was looking around the room like he was looking for somebody else.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I know that look. I've seen that look before.
Yeah.
He was looking for a black face. He was looking for somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. And he said, "Excuse me." He looked at me and he walked back out. He probably went back to the reception and said, "You know, is that really me?" Like that.
Yeah.
And she probably told him yes. And he came back and he was all apologetic and he was red faced and all like that. You know what I mean? But he was looking for a white face.
Wow.
All right. Now, if I got all the qualifications and he loves me so much to spend all that money on me, what happened?
Yeah.
I tell you, the color of my skin. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay? But I got the job though. He wanted to give me the job. Right? He did hire me, but it took about 3 months for him to get rid of me. You see what I'm saying? Because you know how they do. They'll find ways that, you know, they don't like this or they don't like that. So eventually he could kind of like phase me out. But yeah.
You know, so, I totally understand where you are coming from with that, Ray. I'm a nurse, and one of the jobs I went for orientation, and I was told when you get there, ask for this nurse. She will be orienting you that day. And so when I got to the nurse's station, I said, hello, I am so-and-so, and I am looking for so-and-so. I'm here for orientation. And so this nurse tells me, okay, hold on a second. And so she called a nursing assistant, and she told me, you will be with her. So I know it happens. You know, I've seen incompetent white nurses, you know, promoted, while competent Black nurses, they don't go anywhere. I've seen it, you know, so I know what you're talking about. But anyway, moving on. So this practice did not begin to end until 1970s. And I want to come all the way to 2008. A system of reverse redlining, which extended credit to unfair terms. This is when Obama actually came to office and found housing crisis. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Ray, please explain what happened. How did we get here? Talk about remember foreclosures?
Yeah.
Everybody was losing their home. Yes.
Well, it was predatory lending is what it was. It was the banks were acting like vultures, and they were preying on Black folks, people of color. You know, normally when you go to get a bank loan, banks make it so hard for you to get the money. You have to prove you don't need the money before they'll loan it to you. You know what I'm saying? That's the normal practice, right? But back in 2008, just before Obama came in, what banks were doing, they were making it too easy to get the money. All right. They wanted Black folks and people of color to sign on the dotted line so they could have a lien on their homes. And then the first time they missed a payment, they would foreclose.
Wow.
Okay. And take their homes. All right. So that's the predatory lending of it all. And like I said, they just made it too easy to get the money. They went the other way. Yeah.
So it was on purpose.
Pardon?
It was on purpose.
Yes, it was on purpose. Yeah, they know what they were doing. They knew what they
Mr. Corey, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, you know, we've struggled so hard to get a home, and what we do as a culture is we strive to have a home ownership, right? We strive to do those type of things, and when it's outside of our reach and we struggle so hard for it, when it became very easy, it was like, you know, taking candy from a baby. It was very easy to go there because everybody wanted to have that home ownership. So they kind of preyed on what we have been raised upon and what we desire to have home ownership and land ownership.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask both of you this question as we're talking about social and economic disparities. Does this explain white privilege?
Well, white privilege is a state of mind, actually. And it's part of white privilege. That it might be one aspect of it, yes, but it's not the whole thing. You know, white privilege it's like sitting on the back of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama. You know what I mean? Black folks just got used to going to the back of the bus because they were raised that way. Getting up to give a white man your seat. When white man standing, you get up, okay? You know, two people who are equally qualified for a job, when they walk into the interview, they look at the white interview, look at the white person, look at the Black person, and they just assume the white guy is better. You know what I mean? That's white. The white privilege just means that you have an easier go of it, no matter what it is. You're gonna have an easier way and an easier struggle than a Black person would. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Now I think it definitely feeds into that. It's a strictly a privilege or an edge strictly based on the color of your skin. 100%. I was listening to a couple pastors talk the other day, and one of the pastors, a very prominent pastor here in Dallas, Texas. And what he said was, he says, back in the day, before he was a pastor, he did drugs. He did drugs bad. All he knew, he went to jail. His father came to the jail and he went home. He without a shadow of a doubt said that if that would have been an African-American person, he would not have been going home. He would have stayed in jail. And it's proven that, you know, the penalty and what happens in that situation is anywhere from 3 times or 6 times more harsher for an African-American than it is for any other race. Person of color.
Well, Corey, yes. And I can hit up on that too, because when I was a prosecutor up in New Jersey, white privilege also hits the criminal justice system. It hits it hard. The first trial that I had, when I just got hired as prosecutor, there was an incident at a local mall, and it was 2 black guys, and they were fighting 3 white guys. It was on a weekend. They were in a fight at the mall. The cops came, and they arrested the 2 black guys. That's white privilege. They didn't arrest the 3. They didn't arrest everybody. They only arrested the 2 black guys. That's white privilege. Okay. Why didn't you arrest them all? Because of white privilege. So then when they got to, they took them down to the police station, and the white guys followed them to the police station. Okay. And the cops got them out the car, and the white guys are making all this noise. We want to make sure you do the right thing with these, and they use the N-word, and they would call them things like that. You know what I'm saying? Just making a lot of commotion and a lot of noise at the police station. Finally, the cops got mad at them, and they actually turned the black guys loose because they were so mad at the white guys for acting such a fool. So when I came in Monday morning, the 3 white guys were in jail back there. All right. So when I got the story and found out exactly what happened, to make a long story short, I prosecuted the 3 white guys, and I used the 2 black guys as my chief witnesses. Okay, against. But what I'm saying is, all that happened because of white privilege. Right. All right? The cops assumed that the black guys were wrong. They just assumed that. You know? And took them to jail. Took them to jail. And when I see a lot of times in court, 2 defendants with equal crimes or violations, they won't get the same sentence. You know, if you're white or if you're black, you won't get the same sentence. You'll get your sentence if you're black. I see it all the time. That's white privilege.
You know, we talk about this a lot, man. I think everybody's talking about what's happening in the world. When we talk about white privilege, I look at what comes back to me is I have 2 sons. I have a 25-year-old son. I have a 17-year-old son. And even me as a business owner and chairman of work with a lot of organizations to be able to sit here. When I have a routine before I drive out of my driveway, I take everything. My wallet sits on my dashboard, everything that's in plain sight and where it comes from. And my goal is to make it home every day from my family. When I was having this conversation with some white friends of mine, they did not understand that. I said, because they don't have to have that talk. I have to have that talk to say, no matter what you do, I don't care how. I'm 48 years old. I don't care if the cop is 19 or 21 years old. Yes, sir. No, sir. Hands in plain sight. Everything is where it comes from. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to show that respect because it's more valuable for me to make it home to my family than it is for me to worry about my pride at that point in time.
Absolutely. She lost the mic again.
Yeah, Monica, we can hear you again.
Am I back?
You're back now.
You're back.
I just to keep on touching on my mute. That's it. Okay. Segregation of children in schools was struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional only in 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. Is this why some schools in affluent neighborhoods have more funding? For example, do all schools have the same access to counselors, school psychologists, personal laptops, etc.? Why is there a gap in spending? Mr. Corey.
Yeah. So so I live in Collin County, Allen, right? And we spend our taxes reflect our education 100%.
Mm-hmm.
We pay high taxes, but we have some very good schools here. Same way
Exactly.
in McKinney, same way in
Mm-hmm.
Frisco, same way in Plano.
Yeah.
I believe the same thing can happen in Dallas. They do have a decent tax, and they do things where there's a population of concentration in more blacks and African American. But I also think the other thing is that I'm very present as part of the ISD as well as the city council to make sure that I am here to make sure that my children are represented, period. And
Yeah.
that's the way the tax dollars go, to make sure they're getting the best education, making sure that they're taking advantage of the counselors. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you, I grew up from Oklahoma, and I always thought when I grew up as a young black man is that when I went to college, I could pick any college I want to and just
Mm-hmm.
go. No one had a chance to sit down and talk to me about an SAT, ACT, or anything from that perspective.
Right.
They, I was a military brat. That didn't happen until I went to Massachusetts, and they sit me down. The counselor say, "Can you come by my office? Let's talk about your future."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you need to make sure that you're taking AP classes. I'm like, what? You need to make sure you're taking, you need to make sure you submit your application to college and make sure you got the application fee. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
You need to make sure you take an ACT and an SAT. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They did
Yeah.
not take it. But I also found, just like I tell my employees and I tell anybody that I mentor, is
Mm-hmm.
that nobody else is responsible for your future but you. You have to take advantage of that and go from that perspective. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
time
Yeah.
we don't take advantage of those resources. They're there. We just don't take advantage of them because it's not cool
Right.
or it doesn't fit what we want to be. But I think that the parents has a role to make sure that those resources are available to their the teachers have to take a vested approach to the students to make sure they're taking advantage of those, but the students has a
Hang on a second.
responsibility as well.
Something happened. Hang on a second.
Mm. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ivy, what's going on here? Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, we hear you. Okay,
We lost you again.
we lost you again.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we got you. Stay there. Don't
Now I
leave.
can't hear you guys.
Okay.
The mics today have just been terrible. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think we're good. I'm sorry. It's
Don't worry.
echoing. Okay, I got it. Okay, it's good. I got it. They can't hear me?
Yep, hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, we're good. We're back. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is just want to make sure that everybody has a responsibility to take advantage of the resources, parents, teachers, as well as individual student to go out and make sure they're taking advantage and leveraging the resources that's available to them.
Okay, all right. Mr. Ray?
I agree with Corey. It's a tough, white folks give us a tough road to hoe out here, but you got to just buckle up or buckle down, I guess, and get it done. I don't know. I grew up, I was a military brat myself, and I traveled all over the world, and I really, I always felt that nobody's going to keep me back. Nobody's going to prevent me from doing what I want to do for myself and my family. I've seen where they have tried. Okay, I've had a lot of hurdles thrown in my path.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of run-ins with racism, but I didn't let it stop me. You can't let it stop you.
Yeah.
You got to keep on plugging and keep pushing, no matter what.
Right.
No matter what. So.
And I think I also want to point out, was the idea of redlining to keep Blacks from progressing. That way, if you probably live in South Dallas, if they make it harder for you to buy a house in Frisco, that way, even your generations to come, they still live in the same lifestyle and they don't move any further than that. No wonder it's usually a very big deal, or it's something we always talk about, and we see it as a success when someone from those kinds of neighborhoods or impoverished neighborhoods, they come out and become doctors. Is that the reason why?
Yeah, the white man always has the desire or the need, I guess it is, to feel superior.
Yeah,
he has to feel that he's superior. Because he can't let go of slavery. He can't let it go.
Yeah.
Right on up till today, he has to hang on to his feeling of superiority over Black folks. And he feels that if you were to rise up to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to be superior to him, and he can't handle it.
Yeah.
He can't. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I want to get to the 21st century. So segregation in 21st century is not lawfully mandated or enforced like prior years we've discussed. Overt racism, however, is evident in school systems, prisons, and society. Black men are killed at disproportionate rate. They are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans. Why in the 21st century?
Okay, I'm going to answer that with 2 words. The 2 words are George Floyd. That's it. Just think about George Floyd. Think about the camera. The camera that was on that cop for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. They were filming him. And did you see the look on his face, that cop's face?
At one point, he actually had his hand in the pocket.
Yeah, hand in the pocket. Right. Yeah. That's one thing too. Hand in the pocket. He was at ease. You notice how at ease he was? He was comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what it's all about. It's no accountability. There's no accountability. He knew in his mind that nothing bad was going to happen to him based on what he was doing to George Floyd. He knew that. He knew that from past history. And I'll tell you something else. I keep saying that the white man is still fighting the Civil War. They are. They're still fighting the Civil War. They can't get over the fact that Black people are not their slaves anymore. And in a lot of police departments all over this country, they have been infiltrated by the Klan. I guarantee you there's a lot of Klan who are cops. All right. And you can say the Sugar Ray said it. I put it out there. There are a lot of cops who are Klan. I'll stick to that. So this is their way of legally getting back at Black people because they can't stand the fact that they don't have their slaves anymore. That's what it's all about. You can't tell me that a Black man running away from a cop is a threat. Where's the threat?
Right.
But how many Black men get shot in the back by cops?
Right.
And like Corey was saying, when he leaves out of his driveway and he takes his wallet and he puts it on the dash where it's in sight.
Right.
You know, you do that because you don't want to give that cop no excuses. We call them a furtive move. Okay, like a sudden move or something, like you're reaching in the glove compartment. And you don't want that cop to be able to say you're reaching for a gun.
Right.
He'll use any excuse he can to say that he was threatened for his life because you're a Black man.
Right. And that is why then my next question, is there anything that Black men and women need to do better? Do African American men have a responsibility, for example, to be polite when stopped by police, not to get in an argument with police, so that they don't escalate the situation? And that's why, Mr. Corey, I guess you're talking about, putting your wallet in plain sight so they don't see you putting your hand somewhere else and think that you're going to get a weapon or something. So is there any responsibility that African American men and women have so that we don't get there?
Yeah.
Well, responsibility to come home safe. That's your responsibility.
Yeah, it's your responsibility to live another day.
Yeah, you make it home safe and you've lived up to your responsibility. They have not killed another black man. You see what I'm saying? So you do whatever it takes to get home safe. And it's just that simple. I don't know what the situation might be, but I tell you what, being the prosecutor up there in New Jersey, I can tell you this: cops are not nice people. They're not nice people.
Are you saying all cops are not nice people, or we just have bad apples?
I'm not saying all cops, because there were some cops up there who I had a very good relationship with, and we were actually buddies. We would go out and hang out and drink beer together. Yeah, but that was some of them. Some. But I'm telling you, the first thing I do, I look for a cop to not be a nice person. I just look for that. And if they are nice, then let them show me. They know how to show me they're nice. But I look for them to not be nice. And therefore, since I'm looking for that anyway, I don't really want to have much of a conversation with them. Keep the conversation short and sweet. If you get pulled over, do what you have to do, give them your credentials, and that's it. Keep your mouth shut.
Is that how you feel, Mr. Corey? Because I tend to feel that your approach is a little bit different.
Yeah, so I believe there's bad apples in everyone. I don't immediately assume that everybody is bad, but in a situation, I'm an engineer, so I'm very good at math, and so in math you have a problem, and then you have a given, right? If your given is 1, if you don't use the given and you try to solve that problem, it will be wrong every time.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, my math problem is that I am a black man, and that's the truth. If I don't understand that and I use that and I take that out of the equation, I will get it wrong every single time. Period. And so what I look at it is that when I stop or get stopped, it's a nervous situation. It's a very tense situation. And the way that I have friends who are police officers, they're trained to look at your behavior, look at your demeanor. It automatically goes to a very stressful situation. So there's no difference from being stressed from being pulled over to being stressed and looking the same way as if you did something, because you don't know what's going to happen. You are very, very stressed. So at the end of the day, you have to be polite, put your situation in, and put your credentials in a way where you don't make any sudden moves or anything from that perspective. And again, as Ray and I said repeatedly, the goal is to come home at the end of the day, period.
Okay, so there's a video that I think I saw it about 2-3 days ago, and it's a man in Arlington. So police were called for disturbance, and this man would absolutely not allow police to come to his apartment. And watching that video, I'm looking at a man that, okay, he has his rights, and he's telling the police officers they cannot come into to the apartment, but they have been called for disturbance. And that's why I'm saying, is there a responsibility for African American men? Because it was, to me, looking at it, I'm thinking it was just as simple as, oh, okay, yeah, somebody called in my apartment, come in, you can check, make sure everybody is okay, and they're gone. But he just talked, and did not allow these officers to say anything. So finally, and honestly, these officers, they were actually really, really patient with him. They had to call for backup because he wasn't allowing them. They were nice to him. So that's why I'm saying it is not all officers. Maybe it's because of what is going on, all the protests that, they are probably conscious about it. But do you think in a case like that, Mr. Corey, back to you, a man like that probably needs to know that, what, maybe my son could have called, or maybe somebody could have called, and they're here because they want to make sure somebody is safe, just to allow them look in the apartment and they go. Yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, it's a tough call. At the end of the day, you got to put your pride inside and actually do again. If my responsibility is to get home or be home, and I get, but also it kind of goes back to the conversation we're having here, right? Is those are some of the freedoms that we are awarded to, that we should be able to have those conversations, to be able to follow the law and say, here's what we're going to do, and they feel that they're being violated. I think it's on a case by case basis. But I agree. It's one of those things where you kind of got to pick your battles. Yeah. Right. Because they could have went either way.
Right. I got a question on that. I got some input on that. Monica, yes. If that guy had been a white man instead of a black man, the cops wouldn't have took that long to remove their foot from the door. You understand what I'm saying? They kept their foot in that door because he was a black man. That's what that was all about. See,
but do you think they're obligated to check their apartment because it was a disturbance call? Are they obligated to look to make sure everybody's okay?
But I'm telling you that when he resisted and said, "This is my home, you don't have a warrant, you're not coming in here." When he said that, those cops are on notice that they're supposed to back off. All right, the cops are wrong. They were wrong. All right, you can't come into somebody's house unless they give you permission if you don't have a prior warrant. Right, and if you really want to get in there, go get the warrant.
Okay,
that's what he kept telling them to do. Go get the warrant. Do it right. And if the man had been white, they would have done it right.
So even though they could see a broken glass.
What does that mean?
So, well, I mean, because they were called for it. I'm just asking, you're a prosecutor, so I'm just asking. So they could see a broken glass, and they've been called for disturbance. So are they supposed to just walk away?
What they can do is they can maintain a presence outside the house. One cop can call it in to a judge. You know, they got judges' numbers who are on call the weekend and all the time.
Okay.
They can get a warrant over the phone if they have to. But they didn't do that. And they could have still stayed outside.
Okay.
They could have still stayed outside. But get your foot out my door.
Got it.
See?
Okay.
And then once they got permission, legal permission, now they can come into the house.
Okay.
They chose to not do it right because he was black.
Okay.
If he had been white, they would have done it right.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good. We're learning. All right then. All right. So I think we've covered almost everything. Mr. Ash, you're running for public office. You will have to serve white, blue, black, and brown. You have you have to see beyond color of the skin. In a divided society, how do you plan to unite your district if elected? What policies do you want to see enforced?
I plan to unite my district one voter at a time. One voter at a time. One person at a time. You know?
Right.
I come from a military background like Corey there, Army brat. And then when I was old enough, I went to the Army myself back in Vietnam. All right. And being in the military, I had the motto that I never meet a stranger. I never meet a stranger. Anybody I meet, I can pretty much say, I know somebody just like you. I met them over in Germany or over in France, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
He already met somebody like you. You know what I mean? You're not a stranger to me. I already know you. All right.
Right.
So I don't meet strangers, and I can get along with anybody. But I also know when people ain't right. I got that feeling too. All right. And I can tell. And you know, those people, you know, I do what I can for them, but you know, I work with the people who want to be worked with. When I got my job, when I got my position as prosecutor in Hamilton Township, the mayor appointed me, and he brought me in there because, see, I was the first black prosecutor to ever do that job, first one in history. And so he called me in there and sat me down. He says, "Ray, I'm gonna tell you something." He says, "When you go through this job, there are going to be some people out there that are not going to like you no matter what you do. Right. Because of the color of your skin." He told me, and this is a white mayor talking to me, but he knew. And he told me, he says, because of the color of your skin, they're not going to like you no matter what you do. He said, but don't worry about that. Just do your job as best you can, and I got your back. And that's how I treat people in my district. I'm going to do my job to represent them. I'm going to do the best I can for them. But if they like me or don't like me, that's up to them. All right. I'm going to be cordial and nice to everybody. I'm not going to meet strangers, but some people ain't going to like me no matter what happens. Sure. And I don't worry about it. I don't even worry about it.
All right. Yeah. I want us to move on because I think we have some questions from some of the people that are watching, and I'll get right to it. But Mr. Corey, I just wanted to ask you this question. Black people have been calling for white business boycott. I don't believe we have a white and Black economy. What are the repercussions, and isn't that racism by Black people then? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so I agree. It's not a black or white economy. It's definitely there, but I think that you got to put the why you would boycott in this situation, because that allows people to understand the buying power and what we contribute to the GDP as a people. To say, without those dollars, here's what we got. It's a way to get them to listen, right? As you start to see what's happening right now is, we knew this racism was going on for a while, but now you're finally seeing it when it starts to affect the dollars. Things happen, right? And that's what it's there for. If you look back at the Woolworth sit-in, you look at all the sit-ins, it was a situation where when the reason why the bus boycott worked is because they were valuing those African American dollars. Those black dollars were big. And I don't believe it's race, it's the reverse. What I look at it is, and what I strive for, being over the Collin County Black Chamber, is I want to make sure that people understand that we have qualified Black businesses out there that can do the job. I want you to come and give them their fair share. And if they're not giving you their fair share, that's for me to help and work through them to make through it. But also give them the fair share and give them a fair shot. But if they don't do well, do like you would do with any other business. Tell them why. And feedback so that they can make it better and do it. Don't go out there and spread it on social media that I brought one cookie and that cookie was bad and now nobody wants to buy any more cookies. No, there could have been a reason. Let's go have that conversation and put it out there and make it happen from that perspective. But that's that. You have to look at the reason and make sure we put these things in the context, because I think a lot of stuff gets taken out of context of what that looks like and how it comes from.
Okay. So if I can just take a question or two from some of the people that are watching. I see there's a question here from Lois Jerry, and she's asking, why is Juneteenth not a federal holiday? Any of you can answer that?
Well, I tell you what, it's not for lack of trying, because Juneteenth is mentioned in there are 37 states that have tried it. Okay. And there have been like about 100 different laws that have been proposed. All right. So people have tried, but I guess it's just, I guess we ain't ready for it yet. How about that? You know, we just ain't ready for it yet, but we have tried. I mean, everybody knows, well, 37 states anyway have tried.
Okay.
So it's just that I guess America is not ready for it yet.
Yeah, I actually found out a lot of people didn't even know about Juneteenth.
That's true. That's true.
And then I have Saif. He's asking, has there been any reform policy to, you wrote for me in whatever. What is this word? Oh, okay. I don't read cursive. So he says, has there been any reform policy to address redlining?
Yeah. Reverse redlining was stopped by Obama. But redlining itself, Corey, I don't know. We have legislation that.
So it depends. So I think it is morphed into something else, right? I think it's called redistricting now.
So they just named it?
No, it just depends on what's happening. I don't know the answer to that, but you're definitely seeing some movement. You don't see people stopped. You see a lot of African Americans and Blacks moving into different neighborhoods and those things from that perspective. You're seeing some of that's where the Fair Housing Act came out for that perspective. But I don't have the situation where stopped by race, creed, color, whatever I have. So those have been the situations to battle those lines and from those perspectives. But if you look at some of the neighborhoods and where it comes from, happened in the big cities, as this started to change, as the Blacks moved in, the whites moved out, right? So it just continues to move around. But you're seeing a little bit more diversity and things from that perspective. So there are some laws like Fair Housing Act and those things that have provided a way to combat redlining the way it wasn't before. That I have to give a loan. Doesn't matter. As long as you qualify, you get it.
Okay.
We lost you again. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. You're back.
Oh.
You're back.
So I was saying, I have some young people here that are helping me to look at comments and things, and questions that are coming through. I'm telling you, they're all on their cell phones. I'm like, I thought you guys were supposed to be my assistants. So I don't know, what comments have you seen?
There's a bunch of comments, just not questions.
Okay, so I think I just have to do this myself. Not questions, but let me see.
Mm-hmm.
So I see people are just commenting, but I haven't seen any other questions here. So I think, oh yeah, redistricting. Okay, so Saif said, yeah, it is redistricting. So I think if we don't have any questions now, I'm just gonna give you, gentlemen, a chance to give us, your remarks, what you think, where you think we should go from here, what is expected, and all that good stuff.
Well, where we should go from here is just keep pushing, basically. Trying, and I think a lot happened, a lot of good things happened with George Floyd's death and all those demonstrations that followed. I think finally we're getting white people to recognize that systemic racism exists. Because I had a couple white people over the last several weeks who have asked me what they do as a white person to help things out. And I tell them that you've already done it because you asked me that question. In other words, by asking me that question, it means that you have recognized. That's all. The main thing is white folks have to recognize that systemic racism exists. And the only way it's going to go away and get better is to first recognize that it exists. And, I went up in front of the city council of Allen last week. And I went up
Ray,
there.
we can't see your face. Can you tilt your camera so we can see your face? There you go. Yeah.
Good. Okay. I went up in front of the city council in Allen, and I asked them what they were going to do about it to address the fact that systemic racism exists, or they're going to speak out about it, make a statement, do something, because until you recognize it, it's not going to go away. And I think I struck a chord up there because shortly after they indicated that they were going to put it on a future agenda, one of the council meetings. So that's the first step. They will take the first step. And if you take that first step of recognition, then things will get better. They will get better. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Corey.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you got to be open for the conversation, because at that point in time, that means that you're acknowledging that there is a problem. Might not agree that it is a problem, may not agree on the same situation or the outcome, but at least you're acknowledging there is a problem. Kind of goes back, if you see something, say something. And be making sure that you put it out there to have those conversations. So what I would encourage everyone is a couple of things. Sit down with your white counterparts and have an open conversation, an open dialogue, right? And to have an understanding, because there's certain things that they go through we don't understand. There's certain things that we go through they don't understand. But be able to agree that there are situations that happens in that we need to learn from and be open, because that it's a reality that things are different and things happen in that situation. The next piece is going to come for my brother Ray is right there, is we need to get out there and make sure we have the right elected officials and the right people in office, not every 4 years, every 2 years, and that, because where it comes down to, the reality of it is the impact that we get is on the local, county, and state level is where we get the biggest impact. But we're all ready to rally up against this 4 year because that's the president. Yes, he makes a lot of choices from him, but we're so sheltered from that we really don't see that impact from the president down this low. Right?
Absolutely. Remember, you build a house from the ground up, from the foundation.
Exactly. But if I'm going in front of a county juror or county sheriff, we're talking about police officer. We go to a county sheriff, that's an elected official. If I go in front of the county judge, that's an elected official. When I go in front of these people of my DI, my city council, those are elected officials that you have a direct impact to say, hey, if they don't follow where we're going or not looking for our needs and where it comes from, we have to stay in front of that. And you got to get out there and vote. And you got to go out there and make your voice heard, because as we talk about all these freedoms that we have been warranted, one of the biggest one was the right to vote.
Yeah.
And we don't exercise it. We say, I agree, but I don't want to vote. No, go vote, make your voice heard. Can't complain. Can't complain if you don't show up.
I have to go back. Allow me to just go back because somebody asked a question here, and I know she will get on me if I don't say this question, if I don't ask it. What do we do when we complain of injustice done to us? Example, promotions and lack of opportunity, and the people we complained to, our friends, to the ones that we are complaining about. What do we do in that case, Mr. Corey?
To make sure I understand the question, so I've got a little bit. Can you re-ask that question?
I think what she's asking is that if there is injustice at work, and who do you complain to?
Yeah. So I mentor a lot of young people in corporate America and where it comes from. And corporate America is a very tough place for African Americans to maneuver, because it's a lot of politics, and we don't know to do that, right? And I give a book out. One of them is called The Corporate Code, and what it allows you to do is to understand how to navigate that. I'll tell them to make sure they're good friends and spend a lot of time with their HR person, not just because they're hired and when they get fired, because they know what's going on in the organization. The next piece is spend time with your manager, but also spend time with your manager's manager, because don't allow anybody else to manage up for you, period. Right? You should always be managing up, and then take it to the source, because at the end of the day, you should be comfortable enough to go out and lay what you have on the situation. And it may not be the outcome that you want, but you got to take it to the source, because if you know the deal is it gets lost in translation. So you told your friend that told somebody else, hey, I like pink. By the time it gets back to your manager, oh, they hate black. What? That is not what I said. Take it to the source and let them hear the source, and understand that it may not come out and be the way that you want it, but you got to take it and make sure your voice is heard and address it in that situation.
I think what Alice is talking about here is sometimes you could even be feeling there's injustice about your immediate boss, but your immediate boss is friends with whoever is higher up, so you kind of tend to think, if I even go, above my immediate boss to report my immediate boss, what's going to happen? They're friends anyway. At least I think that's what you're talking about. So that's what she's talking about. Yeah.
In some cases, you're right, but you have to continue to voice your concerns and find the avenue within the organization that will allow you to voice your concerns. And typically, it's going to fall back to the HR person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we can now wrap it up. I want to say I appreciate both of you for making time, and also to everybody that is watching. I appreciate you guys so very much. You always make it possible for me to come on live. Otherwise, if it wasn't for you guys that are watching, I wouldn't be getting these great guys to come and have a live show with me. It is because of you, my fans, that I do what I do. And thank you so much, Mr. Ray, Mr. Corey. I hope we can do this again. I hope we can meet up for even different topics. You guys have a wealth of information, and we've learned so much today. So with that, I say to everybody, have a very lovely day and a blessed weekend.
You too. Right. Thank you.
Good.
All right.
Okay. See you later.
Bye-bye.
See you, Corey.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.